Hey there, I'm Lonnie Lopez, and on today's episode of One Time Out Left, we're back in our original place. I've been on the road for a couple of them, and today we have Coach David Cantu, who's been coaching for 29 years with coaching stops at Pace, Rivera, and Veterans Memorial High School, which are all located in Brownsville, Texas. Currently, he is the Los Fresnos High School head football coach and athletic director for the Los Fresnos Falcons. Appreciate you being here, Coach Cantu.
I'm honored to be here. Lonnie, I've known you for a long time, and I know that anything that you do and you're a part of, is coming from your heart, and you want to share things with people and bring joy to somebody's life. So at the end of the day, man, I hope this interview just does that.
No, I appreciate you being on here, Coach. I mean, I said one time, and I told other ones, I thought when I first made the podcast, my mom and my wife would only listen to it because they had to, right? Because they were part of my family. But it's been a great, and I want to keep tagging along, and appreciate you being on here again, Coach. Um, I know when I said the schools, I didn't say them in the order that you were in because we're going to get to that at one point. But let's talk about you were born in Brownsville, which located near Sam Stadium, which you let me know that, but you were raised in Los Fresnos.
I was. My parents built the house on 803 back in the day when it was a dirt road, and there was probably two houses on 803. Now there's probably thousands. And my dad was from Los Fresnos, so he was coming back to where he grew up. He was born in a house right by where our current Little League field is. So we're coming back to his hometown, and my brother and sister grew up in Brownsville near Sam Stadium. And so a month before I'm born, there we are on 803, and the house is still there. My parents still live there. And so Los Fresnos is really all I knew. My dad, like I said, grew up here. He had four brothers. A couple of them were real into sports. The most athletic was my uncle Roy, who was a four-year letterman and played center for the Falcons, and just loved sports. My father's mother, Teresa, was the first Hispanic ever to graduate from Los Fresnos High School
Wow.
in 1941. And to my understanding, school started here in 1915. So it took quite a few years to get Hispanic to graduate. So yeah, and my roots do go pretty deep. And that picture of 1941, there's only like maybe 17 graduates, and I think I'm overestimating, but I show that to our team too in one of our character lessons because it was tough back then. Even to get to school was quite a
Very
quite
true.
a
I
feat.
think, Coach, on that, talking about growing up in the Cantu household, right? So you are one of, you said two siblings.
Three. I'm the youngest.
You're the youngest.
Yeah.
Okay. So you have an older brother and an older sister.
Correct.
Are they any of them in the education or sports field?
So my brother Hector grew up and he loved sports, and he played pee wee football for the Falcons in middle school, and uh, sophomore year he played scrimmage with the varsity some, and had a great JV year. But his junior year, I don't know what happened, Lonnie, but he ended up showing a couple days late when they started, and the head coach at the time, Virgil Garcia, handed him his equipment and said, "Hey, you're over there in that JV locker room because you weren't here on time." And he just got his stuff, threw on the floor, and said, "I ain't doing this then." So he was already real into ag, though. He's more of he raised pigs and steers, and that was his passion. And even to this day, he's a big barbecue person. He's that guy. I'm not. And then my sister was an artist. She was big into art, had art shows, and still paints and all that to this day. And I was the junkie, the sports junkie. So I'm the one who caused my mom to sit in the car for hours and hours there at the Los Fresnos Park, wherever we practiced baseball and pee wee football. And I'm lucky that she did that she sacrificed a whole bunch of time just to make sure that she could tell that that's what I loved, and she allowed that to happen.
Oh, what's that, Coach? That's. I know a lot of kids weren't as fortunate to go to those places and do little league sports. I remember I wanted to go, but my parents were like, "Nah, you can't do that." But it takes a sacrifice as parents, even back in the day, and now parents have to sacrifice. If they're gonna put their sons or daughters in traveling teams. Well, back then it was more traveling. Here was you played local, correct? You didn't play too
That's
much
it.
far.
Same park you drive by in High 100 is where I played every one of my games.
Oh, Coach, what'd you play back then in Pee Wee?
I was always a first baseman. I never. I was a bigger kid. I grew a little bit earlier than most, and but I took a lot of pride in that position. I thought I was the best scooper in the world, man. Like if they threw the ball in the dirt, I got excited because I was going to make a nice scoop and all that. A couple times they let me try to pitch, but I wasn't a pitcher. So in football, I was a center in Pee Wee football and defensive end. and still have a lot of memories of that. Even we used to play our football games there at the park where
as well.
yeah. And to this day, I remember not being able to contain Randy Gracia on 2 sweeps and getting coached up by my brother afterwards. But then coming back the next game and I was able to force that back in. So little things like that still stay in my mind. And then when I got to middle school, I thought I was going to be a lineman because I was young, as a young guy. And my brother was a center, so that's why I probably was a center. But then I kind of transitioned into being a quarterback and running back for a little while, even though I really wasn't that. I'm not a fast twitch kind of guy.
And when you went to junior high, who was the coaches at that time?
So my coaches in junior high, there was 4 on the staff total, and it was Jesse Lachico, and I'll name 3 of them. Doug Dahlberg, who is now on our Falcon football staff, and Dan Smith was there as well. Coach Dahlberg was actually the first teacher I ever had in middle school. So as a 6th grader, you go into that brand new building, and you're with all the 7th and 8th graders. And the very first class I go to is health. And Doug Dahlberg's there, and he's 6 foot, whatever, 5, 6. So I was a little bit like, oh my gosh, is this what junior high is all about? All these big teachers, but it was just him. But I remember him to this day, and I tell him that I remember your class because you went over the class rules the first day, and your rule number 9 was all rules were meant to be broken. So I thought that was the coolest thing. Kind of broke the ice with everybody. But yeah, junior high times were cool. Roger Heath was always also there. And later on, as a middle school coach, I got to coach with Roger Heath, who was a great influence on me. So those were the years there.
And then, so that means when you after junior high, you went to high school with Los Fresnos, and coach, I remember it was Coach Benny Gonzalez was the coach. So you're freshman through your junior year, until Coach Amaya got hired, which we had Coach Amaya on the podcast, the second one we had on the podcast. Talk about your high school years.
I had a lot of respect for Benny Gonzalez and how he worked. If you ever drove by the stadium, it didn't matter what day of the week, in the off season or summer, you saw, I think he had a red van, and you knew he was putting in so much time and effort. He was hands on when we were doing mat drills and all that. He was right there on his belly on the mat, slamming it and bringing energy and enthusiasm, and he was. We wanted to win so bad for him, but we just did not have any good years. And, I think now in retrospect, thinking back, maybe things were a little too complicated. Because I remember the last game of the season, one of our offensive coaches going over some blocking schemes, and kids, it was obvious by the answers that they really didn't know what their jobs were. So I think that there was something going on there that I kind of learned already as a coach. Like, you better make sure that they understand it as good as you do. Mm-hmm. He did have someone on his staff, Jerry Cavazos, that I was real fond of, and we still communicate to this day. We had a baseball team was successful, and then Jerry Cavazos. I feel like a lot of little things that I do is what would Jerry Cavazos do? And then going into my senior year, you're right. It's the spring of my junior year. The spring of my junior year. Coach Amaya comes in, and first day we're all sitting there on the floor, and he comes in and sits on a table. He's got his boots on and his country shirt. And he said some of the coolest things. To this day I remember. He goes, I don't care if you're yellow, I don't care if you're purple, green, white, black, none of that matters to me. If you're going to come and be a great teammate and give it all you got, then you're going to be a Falcon. I never heard anything like that. And then one by one, he started bringing out some of his assistants like Max Torres and Johnny Hinojosa and Sammy Montalvo, and it was just like a holy Toledo. And that first year, I got hurt. It was a second or third game of the year. We're playing Port Isabel at Port Isabel. We hadn't beat him in 29 years. Yeah. We were about to do it. We were up late with under a minute, I think, and just one of those games. A big storm came through, so you could already tell some sort of thing was going on. But then at the very end, they ran a trick play, and it worked. And they what could have been an incredible victory because it had been so long, ended up being just a horrible defeat, and it was just pitch quiet all the way back from Port Isabel to Los Fresnos, and it is what it is. That's part of the game, right? But that season we finished 500, which 5-5, and to be honest with you, it doesn't sound impressive, but it had been a long time since any Falcon football team had even finished 500. So I think we were that first step of showing improvement, and then soon thereafter, I don't know, it takes Coach Amaya, but maybe his 4th year, and maybe his 5th, but district champion. And so amazing to see that, because me growing up, I loved the Falcons. I had so many heroes growing up, but we weren't very good. And we always had kind of maybe a complex that, wow, we're just not very tough here, I guess. We're just not, golly, they're better over there in those other places. I hate to admit it, but that's maybe kind of what went through my mind a little bit. I'm sure other people too. So to be just a little bit of part of that change is kind of cool to look back on.
You know, we're talking about Jerry Cavazos and Johnny Hosa and all those coaches. I was the sixth grade. When I was sixth grade, I used to be a water boy for the Falcons, and then I became for baseball. So I remember going out there and taking all the equipment, especially all the catcher equipment. I don't know why the catcher never took his stuff, so I took the bags and stuff.
Yeah.
And I remember, and I think I would not do it. At 48 years, I would not do it. When I was, 12 years old, I did it. Richard Kretz was the pitcher at that time. And I remember I would go and warm up. I'd put the thing on and get down, and I kept thinking, now I'll be like, that ball was coming fast. Coach Richard Kretz could throw that ball. I remember doing that because I also did that when he was punting as well. And he would punt, and I would try to catch it, and I never did, right? But I remember Coach Cavazos very much because even when he went to the tournaments, he would ask my parents if he could take me. And my parents were like, yeah, go ahead. But the principal, which was Ms. Dora Reese, great principal, she was like, no, he needs to be in education. He needs to be in a classroom. So I never got to go on the tournaments. I got to go to like Laredo. I think you play Laredo teams and stuff. But I remember those years of being a water boy for a baseball team. And then when they give you that fitted hat.
Yeah, oh yeah.
And when he gave me
still
one,
have that, my high school fitted baseball hat.
So when he gave me that, I was like, man, I'm it. I'm the man now.
Yeah, just real quick about Jerry Cavazos, because he's really special, I think. And he did a lot of little extra things to make the experience that like a special one for the kids, for the players. After the season was over, his wife would make on cardboard. She would literally draw a baseball and real carefully with marker, beautiful baseball, and then put our name and our statistics for the year at the end. Little things like that. Like, who does that?
Yeah.
And then have a little get together at where he lived for the team, and made sure we had a tournament out of the Valley, which back then was very rare.
Yeah.
But he took us to Robstown to experience that. So I really look back at him now and try to do some of those little things as a coach to show appreciation. I didn't really understand what was happening at the time, but now I get it. And then we had a reunion not too long ago with our baseball group, and so he remembered everything, and it's pretty cool when somebody can do that. And just real quick on him, so my sophomore year, I think, Richard Kretz was our ace. By the way, you brought up Richard. But we ended up playing the number one team in 4A baseball, Pleasanton, and he ends up apologizing to us in the bus after that game, and that's because we won that game. We beat the number one team in the state of Texas, really? Pleasanton. But he apologized to us because we were a young team. We had a lot of underclassmen, and he said, "Guys, I'm gonna be honest with you. Like, I immediately asked, go ahead, let's have a series. Let's have a 3-game series, a best of 3." And he goes, now, if I would have just said one game or flipped for one game, maybe we would have won that and we'd be, moving on. But now we got to beat these guys 2 more times. And they had a couple of guys who were drafted and so forth, and they beat us those last 2. But still, he was apologizing to us in the bus after helping lead us to a victory, a comeback victory. I think it was we were down 8-4 in the last inning, and we made this miraculous run, kind of like West Coast softball did recently, and cool memories.
That was great. I remember seeing part of those and being a part of that, and it's funny that I don't watch too much baseball, but I remember growing up watching all that stuff. Coach, so when you graduate, you talked about getting hurt along the way your senior year.
I actually got hurt my sophomore year, Lonnie. A serious knee injury to my right knee, and I did not get hurt playing football. I got hurt playing basketball, and I kind of feel like it happened a little bit on purpose because I didn't want to play basketball that year. But the coach brought me into his office, and I was that kid in middle school that was bigger than everybody else. So I was the guy who's probably scored the most points and probably was able to handle the ball pretty decent, but I wasn't a basketball guy. But I kind of got talked into playing, and sure enough, the first practice I take a shot from the elbow, and we're doing a drill, maybe a 3-on-2, 2-on-1, and as soon as my knee comes down, a guy's knee hits the side of my knee, and I end up tearing up my knee. And back then, Dr. Herman Keeler, who's another Los Fresnos Falcon grad. I had told him, Dr. Keeler, I was gonna. Coach Cavazos already told me I was gonna be in the varsity baseball team and I could have a chance to start. Like, what can I do? I don't want to have surgery and be out. Back then it was like a 7 or 9 months, whatever. And he said, well, I can put this big old Don Joy knee brace on you and it'll keep you together and you'll get through baseball season. And it got me through about the first month. But then we were doing some base running drills one day and I hit first base and my knee just totally collapsed to the point where I had to go under the knife and get fixed. Now fast forward to that, my senior year, we're playing Port Isabel. Is probably in the second quarter, maybe third quarter, I don't know. But they run a sweep to the outside, and I'm a middle linebacker, so I'm going that way, and I see the guy coming, the receiver's coming my way, and then all of a sudden at the last second, he went low on me, and he hit my other knee, not the one with the knee brace, but my left knee, and it stuck in the ground and it hyperextended, and so I just laid there thinking, oh my God, they got my other one. So after going to the doctor and checking that out, they told me back then I had a microfracture, which I had never heard that word in my life. Now I've heard it a few times, and you're going to be out for 5 or 6. Well, I mean, football season's pretty short. So all of a sudden that was it for me. So my senior year ended after that maybe second game of the year. And it was difficult to stay a part of things, but Coach Amaya made that easier. He really was recognizing what was happening to me mentally and made sure he did everything he could to make me feel part of the team, which I appreciate to this day. And he really, I was always so amazed with his ability psychologically to get us all the right. One story about him, and reason why I think things changed. We had an incredible defensive lineman, and I'm gonna use his name because I'm gonna compliment him. His name is Joey Zuniga, and Joey was probably the best player on our football team. He was just tough as, son of a gun. And Coach Amaya told us, make sure you're in this field house by 4:10. Just make sure you're in this field house by 4:10. So all of a sudden, we're all there by 4, like as fast as we could be. The bell rings at 4. We're probably most of us there by 4:02, and then all of a sudden you hear ba ba ba, and then everybody's like, oh shoot! And Coach Amaya saw somebody get up, don't get that door, and because Coach Amaya would tape ankles. I've never seen a head coach do this, but in our same field house, he was over there in the corner. And he was the one taping ankles for the football players. I thought that was cool too. Without a shirt, you could see his tattoo of the Blessed Mary. All really cool stuff. But at the end of the day, it was Joey trying to come in late, and he did not let him in. So we played that game without him, and he was willing to make a tough call there, and do the right thing. And at the end of the day, decisions like that are the reason why things turn around for the program, I think. And so just thought I'd share that with you.
No, Coach, that's a great story. I think I shared that one with my wife the other day when Coach Amaya was here. Coach, in talking about as you...
Yes, starting, correct? That's what you said? Lonnie, I'll be honest with you. I never thought for a day in college that I was ever going to be a coach. Not one day in my life did it cross my mind. And not an insult to coaching. I was a nerd. I was one of those straight A kids growing all through school. Got this big engineering scholarship to UT Pan Am, but then I got another scholarship to UTSA as a student, honors program, all that stuff. And so that's where I went. At the end of the day, I felt like that's what I want to do. So I went pre-med for a little while. And once I started studying the pre-cat, the exam you got to take to get in, I started looking at that. It intimidated me. I thought maybe this is not the right way to go. So then I said, well, let's something physical, sporty, physical therapy. So I kind of dove all into that, made sure I had all the prerequisites to get into the Health Science Center in San Antonio to at least interview and apply. And so I get that and show up to the Health Science Center one day, and there's about 80 other people in the room, and they come in, they say, congratulations, you've been selected for this interview. We got over 1,600 applicants, and we got 80 of y'all, but at the end of the day, we're going to choose 18, and then we're going to choose 2 or 3 alternates, just so you know. And so finally in the interview with 2 ladies, I thought it went fantastic, but at the end of the day, I think probably scores may have hurt me back then, like when you're in high school, you're thinking about taking the ACT or SAT, but once you go into college, trying to get into that sort of program, you're taking the GRE.
Okay.
And I thought I scored pretty decent, but when I sat there in the waiting room listening to everybody else talk about their GRE scores, I realized, holy Toledo, like they were near perfect, and I was like not even near that. So I kind of knew going into it, I'm going to really have to hit a home run. And so I get the letter in the mail, and it says, "Congratulations, you've been chosen as an alternate for the physical therapy program here at the Health Science Center." This is May of my senior year. Now, if I would have given myself advice on that, I would have said, "Hey, apply to all the schools." I thought I was misinformed. You had to have all the prerequisites to even apply. I only had them all for the Health Science Center. But at the end of the day, I was chosen an alternate, and the same exact day, I'm talking maybe 2 hours later, Mr. Andres, Andy Lopez called me. Andy Lopez was an administrator at Los Fresnos. That was the same, the following fall semester was when Los Fresnos was going to break up from Los Fresnos Junior High to Los Guates in Resaca. And they named Andy Lopez the principal at Los Guates. So he basically, he knew me because I dated his daughter. But at the end of the day, he said, "Hey, I need a science teacher. I need someone to come coach. Why don't you come over here and teach and coach?" And I was like, "Wow, well, thank you for calling. Can I think about this for a day?" I didn't want to tell him too much about what just happened to me about PT. Yeah. And then not an hour later, Faustino Rivas called me. Faustino Rivas is someone I played Little League Baseball for all through school, probably 6 or 7 years, so I knew him very well. He was named the principal at Resaca Middle School. So exact same thing. I need to find a science teacher and coach. So I thought about it for a day, and I called Mr. Lopez back because he called me first. And I said, "Hey, you know what? I'm gonna do this." He gave me some instruction on what I need to do. I went emergency, and all of a sudden I'm a teacher and a coach. And then it's the summertime, and I go and I drive up to the now field house, and I see Rocky Cheshire there. And Rocky Cheshire, he was my defense coordinator my senior year, but after 2 years of the high school, he got reassigned to the middle school level. So he goes, and I see him, and he says hello, but he wasn't real friendly. He I don't know if you remember Rocky Cheshire, and but I said, "Coach, I'm going to teach. I'm a coach here, and how's that going to be? Who am I going to be with?" It's like maybe a week before or 2 weeks before school, and he's like, "Well, you're going to be with me this year, David. We'll have the 8th grade, and all right, Coach. Well, what do you want me to coach?" He goes, "Well, you'll be in charge of the offense. I'll take the defense, and you have this grade, and go to the high school and get the playbook and this and that." I'm like, "Holy cow! Okay." So the good thing is we were running the scheme that Coach Amaya still had, and I remember quite a bit of it. But that's how it all started. And the first year I was with Rocky Cheshire, and I learned a lot from him about discipline and organization and how you can be tough, but the kids can still love you and so forth. But after that first year, we had some issues with the 7th grade where they needed someone who was going to be more organized and disciplined. So they asked me to be the head coach of the 7th grade team. So that's what I ended up doing for the next 2 years. And during that time, I did football and basketball at Los Guates.
So, Coach, that head coach at that, the athletic director head coach at that time was Amaya had already left, and Coach Leonel Garza had come in?
That's right. Leonel Garza was our athletic director.
Okay. So the defense was it more of a 4-3, 3-4? Or
I want to say it was a split front that at that time, I'm not sure exactly when Eliseo Villarreal came, but it was.
But that's Eliseo Villarreal was the defensive coordinator with Leonel Garza.
Yeah, I'm just not sure if it was all those 3 years, or it could have been though. It could have been where he was there all that time, and those are stories in themselves. I mean, you see, since Rocky Cheshire was moved down, he was always very bitter towards the kind of the high school staff and so forth. So any interaction that took place was always Rocky telling me, if any of those coaches show up, you go over there and you handle it. You talk to them. I'm not talking to any of them. So that would happen, and so I got to know them a little bit, and Eliseo was someone right away that just, he was so stoic, rarely smiled, very religious, very spiritual, but very in shape, very physical, and was something else, and I kind of made it a goal to impress him somehow, and I couldn't figure out how until finally. You go through, back in those days, we had scouting teams. My team was, I think, Tony Leal, who's still coaching baseball, I think at PSJ North now, and Joel Lopez, who's at Harlingen South. And I was the one middle school guy with him. But anyways, started realizing, man, the only way you can do this is those scouting reports that you give on Saturdays that right before that team's going to play. And so that was getting up in front of all the varsity staff and basically giving them a presentation of that team they're going to play. And we got kind of ripped to shreds a couple times, the first few times, about not giving sufficient information, the right sort of information. And so he had his hit charts, and he was very not impressed by the amount of time that he thought we put into it. So I made it a point back then you had to trade videotapes, VHR tapes. So I was always that guy that had to meet, like, what's his name, the head coach, Torres, or who was that, Hidalgo and Sherilyn, they were brothers. But I would meet head coaches on the road somewhere, and they would give me videos, and I would take them, and I would stay up to 3 or 4 in the morning. And because I already had my drawings, but I'd go back and I'd sketch every single hit chart and where the ball went, so forth. So finally, I got to a point on a Saturday where it had everything drawn up, the number one offensive formation, and every single hit chart, and I made sure it was accurate. And I could tell, even though he didn't smile or say anything, like, but he kind of leaned back in his seat, like, oh, okay, like he actually listened to us a little bit, and but that was big. That I felt like that was just an opportunity, though, to try to really show him that I'm serious about this.
Yeah, because I think some people could have seen. A lot of coaches don't know about that part back in the day about the VHR, and it wasn't Huddle like Huddle now, and
Yeah.
everything's there, and you can get 5 games, 6 games, 10 games, and you could go through everything. Back in the day was one of those type of things, and I did get to scout a little bit, and it takes some time, and you're drawing it out as you're coming back from Cal Allen or something. You're drawing it out, and it takes a while. It takes a lot.
Yeah, it takes a
Very
lot.
detailed, and then
Yeah.
and some people you're watching a game, so sometimes you're missing stuff, and you're asking, hey, what'd you see? And
It was really a good way to learn.
yeah,
It was.
it does.
And it's kind of sad that maybe that doesn't really exist anymore. And then you could pick up things too, in pregame, little things at halftime, things that are happening on the sidelines that you don't see on Huddle video.
Very
and all
true,
that.
very true.
But that's why, going back to Liceo, he was always real strict with us on staying to the very last play of the game. And so that's something that stuck with me. And he was right, because you never know what's going to happen. One of their key guys can roll an ankle at the very end, and it's pretty good information to have, going into a game.
So you're doing middle school, you're coaching middle school, and along the way, do you have the physical therapy in your back of your mind, or you say, you know what, let me?
No, I really didn't.
Didn't that because you're
Yeah,
like, I'm focused
It
on
was
the task
the
at
reason.
hand.
The reason why I was very overwhelmed, because I was a 6th grade science teacher with 7 classes. Each class had about 28, 30 kids in it. So just trying to teach science, and then all of a sudden you have your athletics period and your coaching, and it was just very overwhelming. And I was recently married at that point too, and having our little baby boy, and now he's 27 years old. But there's so many things going on. I honestly felt like there was no time to think about it, to be honest with you. And now we're talking about this, so how do you go from being the guy at Los Cuates to getting a chance at the high school? And 100% of the credit goes to a guy named Billy Simpson. Billy Simpson is somebody who, my second year at Los Cuates, we hire a math teacher named Billy Simpson. And we were looking, Wade Cox and I and Roger Heath, we needed one more basketball coach to complete our staff. And someone made a comment, well, I think that guy over there, that new teacher, I think he has a little bit of basketball background. So why don't you ask him? So we finally talked to Billy, and at first he was very much like, no, I don't want to do this. I've done it before. And then we talked to him again. He was reluctant. Finally he decided to join us. And then Billy ends up being one of the most impressive coaches I've ever worked with in my life. About a couple days before we start our first basketball season together, he brings all his notes from when he was a basketball coach. And he kept leaving a lot of details out. But it was obvious, like, this is not middle school. This is like extremely well-organized notes and diagrams and schemes, and how you're going to attack all these different things they can do to you. And sure enough, we get to our first practice, and I was blown away. We really let him lead the way, and then we kind of were helping Billy. So Billy was tremendous. Billy, it turns out, at the end of the day, was a head coach at one of the Austin schools, Austin Anderson.
Wow.
And he failed to tell us that for quite a while. So he was a head varsity coach for a 6A or 5A team back then that went extremely far. I think he played for a state championship. He had a guy named Chris Clack on his team that played for the UT Longhorns and then Boston Celtics. So Billy was a little more, highly qualified than he wanted to let on and so forth. But Billy was the guy that the second year we were together, which was my last year at Los Cuates, that every day we'd walk out together to the car, and we kind of leaned in our cars. We were always next to each other. And he's like, David, you need to let the athletic director know you're ready to be a high school coach. I'm like, no, Billy, I love this. This is great. David, you need to go tell the AD you're ready to be a high school coach. You're a good young coach. I see it in you. You're a hard worker. You need to take the next step now. You don't want to later on regret this. And not that it's bad to be a middle school coach. It's not at all. But you need to take this chance. You need to, and he kept at me for so long that finally I decided, all right, Billy, just I already set the meeting with Coach Gadasa, and I'm gonna go, and here it is, and so that ends up happening. So I drive to the high school one day, and I think May after that third year, and Leonen's in his office, and well, what do you need, Coach? And I was so nervous. My heart was it was beating so hard. I'm like, well, Coach, just want to let you know I'm ready to be a high school coach. And he's just like, and he just looks at you he doesn't smile, he just stares at you for 5 seconds, and then he starts rubbing his forehead like he does. And he goes, what makes you think you can be a high school coach? And I said, well, I'm a hard worker, and all these stupid, just silly answers. And so to be honest with you, that meeting didn't last very long, and I left there thinking that was horrible. That was the most horrible. He must think I'm a joke. But then in the summer, around early July and so forth, he calls and he asks, David, we got an opening for JV baseball and freshman football. You want to take it or not? Teach biology. And I said, yes, sir. And so all of a sudden, and that was that opportunity to move up to that level. And that's how that kind of came to be.
Out. Coach, right now you mentioned that you had gotten married at 27. You're having kids. Talk about your wife, talk about your family right now. You have a son and a daughter, right? Correct?
Yes, and they're 15 years apart, which I'll get to in a little bit. But Laura and I met in San Antonio and UTSA, and we had met briefly on campus somewhere from a mutual friend, Steve Marroquin, who's now still coaching. He's in San Benito now, OC. But then we went to a club, Coyotes, and to be honest with you, it was just once we got on the dance floor and we started dancing and so forth, just a great chemistry, great connection, and we just hit it off. And then so we fell in love, and then eventually, yes, I get over here, and soon thereafter, we got married in July, so it may have been right before I started there, and but she's gone through too much. What I mean by that is just it is, and listening to other coaches like Coach Maya and so forth. To be a coach's wife it's not cliche-ish. It's not overstated. It's just the truth. It is very difficult because the time that we spend doing this is extreme, and you need a good support system. Her parents, she's from FAR, very proud to be from PSJA High, and her parents. So it's not right around the corner. And then my parents live still in 803, like I said, but she was just a tremendous wife, tried to go to every one of my games and contests and did everything she could. And so all of a sudden we have our little boy and try to do everything, try to get him around sports. He's just a junkie like I am with athletics and sports. And not that we didn't want to have another child, but it just took a long time. And now we have Lauren Hope, and Jacob was in high school with me at the time at Brownsville Veterans, and he wasn't very happy when that happened. I think he was used to be an only child, but once Hope, he was in the here, and he became a great brother, and now he's a pharmacist, married to a pharmacist, living here. Awesome. Just built a house in Los Fresnos and doing very well. He's got a Longhorn room. You go to his house and nothing but just like a museum of Longhorns. And that's the thing is we have pictures of him when he was maybe 1.5, 2 years old, where we would go to UT. We'd kind of break into the athletic facility and take pictures by the Ricky Williams trophy. And I got him a little jersey and shorts that were UT Longhorns. And so we exposed him a lot to those sort of things. And so it was always his goal to go there. And he ended up doing that for pharmacy school. And then Lauren Hope is Jacob, going back to Jacob, he was very smart, intelligent, but he had to work at it. Lauren Hope's more just natural, like hears it once and knows how to do it. Not afraid to dance and do those sort of things. My wife has done a tremendous job of making sure she goes to tap and folklorico and all these. She's a beautiful dancer, who again just doesn't have stage fright. Gets up there and does it. And she does the gymnastics from time to time, which has helped her. And so that's been her thing. But that's all because of my wife. I tried to, as much as I could, be involved with Jacob in Little League. And I remember having days where teaching biology all day, having athletics in between, kind of sacrificing my conference period to help with the other, like maybe varsity or freshman football, whatever it was. And then after school, just rushing to go to help for little league practices.
Right.
But thankfully, I was able to help with that.
I got to coach when at Liberty when David Jacob was playing for Resaca as a quarterback. Great athlete. I mean, seeing him, and I remember thinking, man, we're not gonna be able to stop this kid, man. He just
Well, he was like me. He was like me in that he wasn't a great runner at all. He and I didn't get that gift, but we threw the ball a lot at the house. So the one thing he could do was fling it and throw it around, and very accurate, and put a nice touch on it. And his high school career was tough because he didn't have to come with us, but he ended up coming. It was difficult. Whenever you have, I was at Los Fresnos, and then I make the move, and then all of a sudden your son's at a different school district. It's always that rough time. Well, what are you going to do? And so he had that option to stay, even though I was putting pressure on that. Come with me. But he had a bad experience at a football camp right before school was going to start, to where he came home one day and said, "Dad, I gotta go. I'm gonna come with you. I have to." And I think he was probably talked to maybe in a way that hurt his feelings, and he felt like, I don't have a chance here. So he went, and was one of our we had a big, his group was big, but his sophomore year, his first game against Port Isabel's quarterback, we won like 48 to something, and he threw for I don't know how many yards and 5 touchdowns, and then we're playing Rio Grande City, we're up 14-0, he's just throwing the ball around, and then boom, he tears his ACL. So then that was a rough thing for Jacob, but yeah, you live and you learn, and all these things seem to happen for a reason.
And I'm Coach. I'm glad you touched on wives, because I think wives, and you talk to any head coach, athletic director, they're most important because they keep the house up and running and do a lot of things. Like Coach Amaya always talked about that as well. And I always I know middle school doesn't take as much. I remember I've talked to a couple coaches like, have you talked to your wife about coaching? Like, have you let them know that it's gonna take time? They say it'll take time, and most of them say they do and stuff. And I said, because it's, my wife, I've always talked to her a lot, and she said, I never thought I was gonna marry somebody who coached. They thought, and says, but I'm glad, I'm very fortunate as well as you, that they're very independent. They take care of things. And especially if they go to the games, because I mean, everybody's not. If it's going good, hey, everybody's happy. But when it's not good,
and you find yourself like we see those little Instagrams where you have the 3 or 4-year-olds in a concert, and then you see their parents, and they get all lit up and start. It's the same thing. We look for our family and our wives, and yeah, I honestly though, Lonnie, I took a lot of that for granted though. I did, and I didn't appreciate it as much as I do now. And luckily, fortunately, I got to that point. But I wish, yeah, it would maybe. Gosh, I could have done better. As I think about it, I could have been a lot better. But thank goodness she's hung with me, and just a beautiful human being. She recently lost her father a few months ago, and that relationship was just beautiful to watch. She'd be driving home after varsity football games, after sometimes having small little get-togethers after a game, and maybe getting over there past midnight, because she was going to take her dad to dialysis at the where there was 4:30 or 4:45 in the morning. That was going to be her. That was her special time to sacrifice for him and do that, and then help her parents with different things they needed and so forth. And then the last few years when he was in a nursing home and so forth, and in hospitals, she made it a point. She was gonna do it and find a way to get over there about 2 to 3 times a week, and she was religious about it, and someone who goes to church actually every single day. She makes sure she goes to pray and ask for forgiveness for things, but just to also be thankful for things and so forth. So I admire her for all that she's been through, and how she's come out of it, and everything she's done to raise our kids, because she did a heck of a lot more than I did raising them.
Gotcha, Coach. That's a very, very touching story, and I thank you for sharing that, because I know it can be tough for everyone, especially being a coach's wife and a coach and stuff. Coach, so you go to the freshmen, and you're coaching freshmen for a while there with Coach Leonel Garza, and then how does you keep going?
All right, good. I love this story. So my first year I'm with Israel Gracia, and Israel is our freshman head coach. He's calling the offensive plays. He's got the skill guys. I got the offensive line. I'm calling the defense. He's got that sort of thing, and fantastic year. So then there's an opening, so Israel gets promoted. So now all of a sudden I'm the head coach, my second year, the freshman. we had a guidance staff named Jesse Villarreal who had a lot of varsity experience. So I was real lucky to be able to all of a sudden get an assistant, and the guy was very polished. He was with Tony V a lot of different places, and so we had some pretty dominant years. And the last year our quarterback was Chuch Garcia Jesus, and we had a backfield of Chris LePere and Bobby Diaz and George Jimenez, and we had Sal Gonzalez out here. It was just a team that if the ball went out at the 1 foot line, I would look at our other coach and say, oh, this is great. We're about to get 99 and a half yards of offense. They were that good. It was incredible how good they were. So then 2 years passed. So now all of a sudden it's the spring semester, and Coach Scott Ford was hired. So Scott Ford immediately, one of the first things he did was in our first meeting was he told us, hey, look, I want to get to know you guys. Let's set a meeting during your conference or whatever. I want to sit and talk to you. And he threw in something. He says, and if you want to write me a little something, because it may be hard to go over to kind of in that meeting, talk about everything, write me a letter, whatever. So that's that. So all of a sudden I get to my time where I'm with Scott Ford. So I'm just, and the good thing is I had written that letter. So right away he's kind of bringing up some of the things that I had written about. And, I thought it was a good conversation. But at the end of the meeting, he says, hey, by the way, you're the only guy that wrote a letter. Because it was something he just kind of mentioned real quick. But I did it, and I put a lot into it, man. I think I rewrote it 4 or 5 times just to me, and handwritten and so forth. And so that was that. So I think I didn't do it necessarily. Maybe I did do it to make a good impression, whatever. But I really wanted for him to know me. That's the main reason why I did it. And I one of the things I wanted him to know about was I had testicular cancer. I went through that my junior year in college, and that kind of really helped me, because I think that really made me appreciate things more and slow down and enjoy things, but live more in the present. And so I brought up things like that. And so now you fast forward a little bit. We're in athletic period. I'm in the freshman class with Jesse, like I mentioned, and I'm teaching biology during the varsity class, so I never saw what they did, but Scott pretty much gave us a plan of how we're going to change this and that, but he let us. He wanted to value. He wanted to see how kind of workers we were. And I remember very clearly after maybe 2 or 3 weeks, we had another meeting, and his mood was not pleasant. And those who know Scott Ford, they can tell right away that. So, and right away you can tell something was building. And he said, if y'all want to see how it should be done, then y'all need to get your butts out of your damn classes and come over here during third period, because that's when we had freshman football. That's the way it should be done. So I was sitting there as someone in that class, like, well, that's good. Like, but I'm thinking, but then again, I'm looking like, oh shoot, he's really kind of tearing it a little bit into the rest of the staff, the varsity staff, and so I knew right then that okay, let's just keep doing what we're doing, Jesse, and let's just and so we did, and then spring football comes. And I never experienced that before. So spring football comes, we go through that. And he had hinted that when it was all over, we was going to make some changes if need be. But he didn't tell us it was going to be the night after the spring game. So we ended up going into the locker room, and we're in that coach's office, and all of us are there, varsity staff, freshman staff. And he's sitting there in the middle. And at some point, he just stops whatever the conversation was. He says, fellas, time to make some changes. He goes, Jesse Villarreal, you're now coaching varsity offensive line. And he said, David Cantu, he would say David Cantu, but David Cantu, you got defensive ends now. And then he pointed out the 2 guys that were demoted, and that was tough. And then he goes and points at me again. He says that it's your job, Cantu, to make sure that those defensive ends get on the bus. Because it turned out that the guys that I had, 2 of them, the best 2, were more renegades. So all of a sudden, if I didn't make that happen, that was going to be an issue. So needless to say, they made every bus, and everything went really cool. But yeah, Scott Ford's the one who gave me that opportunity to be a varsity coach, and I was blessed for it. It was a great year. We were 11-0, playing GP here at home, and up, I think 7-6 at halftime, maybe down 7-6. I don't recall. I was a defensive coach. I was coaching defensive ends, of course, and I thought we were just playing an incredible game defensively. And offensively, a lot of things were still there. We were just missing things by an inch or 2 on deep balls or whatever. And then the second half, they just put it to us. They adjusted well. and then they hit their triple option offense, and they exploited us, and so it became a blowout loss, and so Scott Ford leaves, but I'll kind of leave it at that for right now.
Right. That concludes the first part with Coach David Cantu, but get ready for an insightful second episode with Coach Cantu as he continues to share his unique coaching journey. Hear about his time coaching in Brownsville and his return to Los Fresnos and the lasting impression he's made on some of his former athletes. Plus, Coach Cantu opens about his personal health challenges during his early 20s. Don't miss this compelling conversation. One Time Out Left podcast may be found on YouTube, X, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify. Thank you all for listening.